Hi there, I'm Jenn Cassetta, your Chief Badassery Officer. If you're feeling drained, hesitant, stuck in self-doubt, or you just have a case of the vlogs, the Art of Badassery podcast is here to help you unleash your mojo once and for all. We'll provide you with tips, techniques, and real-life examples of how you can kick ass in all areas of your life. You'll learn how to flex your mental muscles, rise above fears, and turn setbacks into superpowers. So let's enter the dojo and let's get to work. Welcome everyone to the Art of Badassery podcast. I'm Jenn Cassetta, your Chief Badassery Officer. And today I have such a special guest for you all. Dr. Jessica Shepard is my guest. Welcome, Jessica.
Hello, how are you? I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited. I think our audience here is primed and ready for this conversation. This conversation we are going to have around thriving through perimenopause and menopause. But first, let me tell you a little bit more about Dr. Shepard. Dr. Jessica Shepard is a board-certified OB-GYN and a leading voice in women's health and longevity, my favorite subjects. As a wife, mother, author, CEO, and media personality on her own perimenopause journey, she brings personal insight and professional expertise to her mission of empowering women through every stage of life. She's the founder of Sanctum Med and Wellness. I just looked at their website. It looks amazing. I wish I lived in Dallas so I could go there. Dr. Shepard combines traditional and alternative medicine to provide comprehensive, holistic care. She's a sought-after voice in the media as a regular on-air contributor on Good Morning America and has been featured on the Today Show, CNN, and so many more. With a commitment to addressing health disparities, Dr. Shepard now serves as Chief Medical Officer of HERS, leading efforts to expand accessibility, personalized care for women. Through her work in advocacy, Dr. Shepard continues to build a community where women are informed, supported, and empowered to live long and live well. My goodness. Thank you so much for being here, Jessica.
I am so excited, and I'm excited to see what both of us can learn from each other in this time that we spend together, because I feel that's what life's journey really is. With every day and every moment that we have, whether it's good, bad, is what can we pull from it to help the process of our journey in life.
Couldn't have said it better myself. The reason why I curate the guests here on the Art of Badassery podcast is because I believe you're all black belts in badassery. So my guess, what I consider a black belt in badassery is someone who has all this amazing success now in their life, but I'm sure success is never such an easy road. There are bumps, there are takedowns. Is there anything you can share with us, like your background and how you got to where you are, and what were some of those major challenges that you've had to go through?
I think the road has been so long to get to when you read that bio. And even when I hear people read my bio, even today, I'm like, wow.
Do you get chills?
I do. And I'm just like, wow. Because I think in the moment, and you can probably attest to this, when you're so dedicated and like passionate about what you're doing, you're really just driving forward. And sometimes you don't look in that rear view mirror to see all the things that you've accomplished. And so sometimes hearing it does make me pause. You have done, like, you don't have to be so consumed all the time with what's going on, what's forward, is sometimes take a step, a breather, look back and being like, I've done some badassery things.
100%. I call it your greatest hits list.
Yeah.
Having a list like our old cassette tapes of the greatest hits, like that as your reminder, even especially on the tough days.
And that's what I have learned through this process, is to have those reminder of your greatest hits. I'm stealing that from you, of your greatest hits moments, because sometimes you may miss the moment. And in this journey of getting to the impact that I make, the position that I have, or what I do as a profession, is those trials, those obstacles, and where it tests who you are. Those are the moments of growth, because those are the moments where you get to either just stay where you are and just being like, I'm just going to walk away, or you're like, no, I'm going to break through that. And Sometimes that time frame may be days, months, or even a year if you have to take a break and come back to it. What
Mm,
I do honestly think throughout this time process is I had to come to a point where I believed in myself to
mm,
get through that moment and also surround myself with people who would be able to carry me in those moments when maybe I didn't believe in myself.
mm,
So I think there's multiple components to it, but because that even reigns true now is, and sometimes shaping those people around you may change.
mm.
I do believe that people are there for stages and phases, and sometimes they can't move to the next stage with you, and that can be okay too.
So Dr. Jessica and I share a speaker management company. Shout out to Amy and Matt of Loud Management.
I'm
Um,
gonna make sure that they hear this shout out because they are pretty badass. I love
they
them.
are very bad at. I'm just new to them, so they've been working with you much longer. But on calls with them, sometimes I'm just like, wow, I have these two people in my corner that believe in me so much. And so on days when I'm feeling like, oh my God, can I really do this?
Yes.
I'm having imposter syndrome or whatever it is it really possible for me to achieve these goals that I've set? It's like sometimes I just remember the people in my corner. Those two are just so fabulous to have.
They
It's
really
so
are.
you kind of said something about you didn't use the words imposter syndrome, but would it be accurate to say that that are some of the struggles you've
Yeah,
had?
I think that imposter syndrome is a real thing. I think that there are varying degrees to it. And I think that in the moments when I've had obstacles or maybe didn't believe in myself, those are moments of imposter syndrome. I do find, however, I can come out of it very quickly. I don't let it take over. But I
Oh,
think
good.
that comes too with self-awareness.
Yeah. And what is your technique or tool or tip? How do you come out of it quickly?
I rely on, again, people who are around me and
Mm,
voicing it, right? So this is what the circumstance is. This is the impact. This is the obstacle. Let's talk about it.
mm,
And being able to value the person to hold you accountable or to challenge you or to tell you the truth of what's going on when you may not want to hear the truth. I think those are the moments where then you get to adjust to all that information from people that are loyal to you and will get you correct, basically.
right.
Then that's when you have the opportunity to say, okay, it is what it is. What am I going to now do with that?
I like that. So the takeaway for everyone out there is, do you have a trusted kind of board of advisors, if you
Yeah.
will, people that you can go to no matter what,
I
you do
say
for
that,
work or anything?
I say that people are the CEO of their lives and they get to hire and fire who's in there. And so it's
Mm,
like like you just said, your board of directors. Who
mhm.
are the people there that are going to really create the ambiance and environment of an outcome that everyone is invested in?
Yeah, love that.
Mhm.
Okay, so on your journey, can you just share a little bit about your background? Where are you from and how?
Oh, I love this part because I always start with the best part possible. I'm Canadian. So I've been out of Canada now longer than I lived there, but I'm still diehard Canadian. I will tell anyone at every opportunity I can that I'm Canadian. And so I love being from there. I loved growing up there. I really learned a lot about
That's
the
weird.
world.
Sorry, you're my
Yeah.
third Canadian guest this season.
I don't know. It's the Canadian season. We're
Happening.
coming
Yeah.
out loud. We're coming out
Okay.
loud this season. And so when I moved here, I was 15
Yep.
and I did my last 2 years of high school and all education after that was done here. And so my journey really was fundamentally my parents are immigrants. They're from Jamaica and they moved to Canada, and that's the environment that I was brought up in. Very early on, had a very strong educational discipline type of background. And so that's really what kept pushing me towards what do you want to do? There always had to be a what are you going to do? And so
Okay.
doctor came in very early. So this is where the story gets really boring because when I think I was in third grade, I was like, I want to be an OB-GYN.
Wow. I
And I'm
don't think
like,
I
so the
knew what that meant in third grade.
and I didn't really, but I do remember we had a assignment in third grade on it's a career choice
Mm,
project and what you want to do, and you had to research and blah blah blah. I chose OB-GYN. I went and interviewed my mom's OB-GYN. I
cool.
still have the little, it was in a cassette tape. I taped him and then I went home and transcribed it. And so over the course of the years, it would change a little bit in what I would say. But then again, I ended up being an OB-GYN. So people are like, that's the story. And I'm like, that's the story.
That's the story. I see that as really cool to have that kind of clarity.
I don't know, Jen. I don't think I'd call it clarity. I'd be like, it was just like a that sounds fun moment.
Uh-huh.
But then it ended up being it, ironically.
Yeah, but it's specific. And that's what I mean by clarity. Like, I had none of that, but I had a best friend, same. She was like, I'm going to be a podiatrist. She just knew it. She went for it. She still is today. You always think the grass is greener, right? So when you're the opposite, like me, sometimes it is nice to look at someone that has that clarity.
I'm so glad you brought it up in that light because like I said, when people ask me, I'm like, my story is really boring.
But then you had to go to medical school. You had to do all your training, and it's hard, isn't it?
Yes, very hard. And looking back, people always ask a doctor, I've heard this from many, if you had to do it again, would you do it? And doctors are typically like, oh, I don't know. But we're glad we did it. But would
Yeah.
we do it again? I know about that.
Got it. Yeah, I remember seeing my sister go through medical school, and there were some rough, dark moments.
Yeah, very dark, lonely. I
Yeah,
would say the journey through it is lonely because you do have a lot of people around you who are doing the same thing, and you
right,
feel that you're doing the right thing and everyone's doing everything with you. But there are some moments where it is lonely because we are in this bubble and the rest of the world is going on. You see your friends who you graduated with who are doing all these different things and traveling, and you really can't put that into your life at that time. And so it does take a lot to just shut it off. And sometimes shutting it off, you do feel lonely.
okay. So nowadays, tell me what drove you to open up Sanctum Med and Wellness, and can you just share a little bit about what it is and what you provide there and why, the why behind it?
I had now done all my training and I did some extra training after I finished residency in surgery. So I did a surgical fellowship for 2 extra years. And then while I was doing my surgical fellowship, I got my MBA at the same time.
What?
So yeah, I'm definitely one for torture.
Who does that?
Exactly. That these are the questions I really would like to know. Because even looking back, I'm like, who would do that?
And also, I'm sorry, what was your debt like?
I did plan that carefully because I was
Okay.
doing my
Of course
fellowship
you did. Of course.
in an academic setting. I was considered faculty because I graduated
Um,
residency.
oh,
Because I'm faculty, they paid most of it. And I was like,
amazing. Yes. Okay,
so
great.
those 2 years while I did that was very hairy and just, I don't remember it. I worked through it. Is I was in academic medicine and very like high research oriented training institutions for the next, so that would be probably 10 to 11 years. And
Wow.
I never thought I would leave that type of medicine. And then what I realize is my passion for educating and really having people understand their whole life encompass of why they came to see me couldn't be capacitated in the template of academic medicine.
Right.
And it was then I started to think, how can I bring and breathe health and wellness into medicine in
Mm,
the way that I wanted to do and to impact my patients in a different way? Because I had to leave the institution of academic medicine, which was a hard choice because typically you are very much taught that you're going to stay in a hospital system. I had to work through that, then believe in myself that I could do it,
right.
and then make the jump. And it took about a good 2 year time frame for me to finally come to terms with you can do this.
Yeah.
And so from there, I became an entrepreneur. I had to change my mindset in how I approached a business and then how to be able to utilize the skill set that I now had for the last 12 years, bring it to life in a different way of how people approach their health and why they would go to a doctor's office and what their expectation was leaving that. I
Wow.
had to make sure that I brought that to life.
What are some of the services that are available there?
Yeah. So for me, like patients still come to see me as like a gynecologist, or for a lot of it has to do with midlife,
Mhm.
perimenopause, menopause. But we also do nutrition. We have two licensed therapists here. We have a life coach. We have a yoga studio. We have aesthetics, and
Mhm.
then we also have skin. So we do so many different things because to me, I want everyone to walk out saying, my entire scope of life can be addressed in one
Mhm.
area or
Mhm.
one place. and I don't have to jump all over the place because that's what I found working in academic medicine. I'd be like, you know what, let's address your nutrition. Then I'd have to refer them. A lot
Mhm.
of times they didn't go and they'd come back and I'm like, what happened? And they didn't go. So I was just like, how do
Right.
I create that ecosystem and that
Yes.
atmosphere for people to want to enjoy their health? And that's what we did.
I think that is what everyone is craving. I think the future, it will be more like that, and you're ahead of
Yeah.
the curve. I always dreamed of having like a wellness center in my
Mhm.
20s and 30s when I started in fitness and then health coaching, then went back to school to do the clinical nutrition piece because I
Yeah.
thought I needed it. But it's interesting going back, having a toe in both, like the clinical, which I always found super boring and not applicable because it's just, for example, like you're learning about the Krebs cycle. And I'm like thinking, how is this ever going to help someone that comes to me who needs help with their nutrition? I think holistic is just
So much more important because it's a
right.
lifestyle, right? No one's going to change overnight. We know
Right.
that. And I think educating and allowing people to journey through it,
Mhm.
change is such a dynamic feature of our lives. And
Yes.
most times people are not, I don't think they understand the tenacity and consistency that's needed for change. So you have to provide the material in whatever you're requesting in the change to do. And it cannot be just one single visit through a doctor's 15-minute interaction with the healthcare professional. It needs to
Right.
be ongoing, it needs to be nurturing, it needs to be something
Coaching.
that you can breathe. Yeah.
Yeah. What I realized over time was that mindset and that mindset coaching was really what people were coming to me for. They said, just tell me what to eat or tell me how to work out. But I'm
Um,
like, but when they didn't do it, it's what's blocking? Why aren't they doing this? Why are they not
mhm.
taking the advice? Oh, that's what we really have to work on. So it's like peeling back the onion layers. And I know that you must.
The reason I do what I do is because so
Mhm.
many people come to me with a gynecological issue or women's health issue, but somehow deep down I was able to start talking about other things that were impacting their life that actually did have an indirect reason of why they may have a
Right.
physical ailment or a situation,
Right.
and it would all come out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you see this part of your life impacting this part? And what can we do with this part for you to be your best self? Yeah.
And it's usually stress related or
Yeah.
something in people's lives that's causing a lot of stress
Yeah.
and not just mental, but obviously then manifests as physical ailments, etc.
Mhm.
So with all that said, I would love to just jump into talking about perimenopause,
Yeah.
menopause. I'm on the journey, you're on the journey, it says in your bio. I,
Very much on the journey.
yeah, I'm 48 and a half.
The same age.
Really?
Wait, how old am I? I think I'm 47.
Okay.
I'm 47.
Don't give yourself that extra year if you don't have to. At 46 was the first time I started to notice my body changing. It started
Mhm.
in this one moment I remember being in downward dog, looking back at my thighs and going, what the hell? Why is my skin so wrinkly? It freaked me out. And I was like, oh, I must be really dehydrated. So I took electrolytes, I drank more water. But over time, it didn't work. Finally I really understood. Also, there was this one moment, and this, which is why I'm so passionate about talking about this stuff, where also I was having like heart palpitations. I'm like, what's
Yeah.
going on? And then I happen to see a clip because then all of a sudden around this age, your algorithm on social media starts to change. And now all of a sudden I'm being bombarded with all of this perimenopause and menopause memes and reels and information. It's like coming at me left and right. I feel like it's
Did
just
you were you searching at that point?
no, no.
How did
Like
it know?
it knows. It knows everything. It could hear you speak. It could hear you talk. A friend would send me a meme or something like that, and next thing I would watch it, and then it would send me more of that. So yeah, I wasn't searching, but I heard Oprah say that this specific thing that she back in the day was also having heart palpitations, and she went from doctor to doctor, and people just wanted to give her a pill and thought she was stressed and all of these things until she finally found someone who said actually that could be related
Mhm.
to perimenopause.
Yeah.
And boom, I was like, oh my God, there it is. But then there's this whole thing of being overwhelmed by
Mm.
all of these symptoms that can be related to going through perimenopause. So, anyway, with all of that said, I guess what made you focus on it? Was it because of your journey or not? Or why are you focused on it now?
Yeah, and the funny thing is it came my dedication to it or my passion for it came before I started to go through my symptomatology. I may have been in early perimenopause when I started it, but I wasn't having symptoms. But
Mhm.
what I did know as a women's health physician and advocate is and I just looked back at it, like a lot of our training is spent in the reproductive phase. When you're adolescent, start to get your period into your I guess you could say teens from the time you get your period to late 30s when you have your period
Right.
of being able to reproduce. And society actually creates an ecosystem for of importance. And I do feel, and I said this to someone the other day, that pregnancy becomes a currency of what a woman's worth is. And so we
Wow.
spend a lot of time, dollars, efforts in that time frame, and I found that there was this like drop off. Not like us, thanks so much for coming. We'll lead you out the door and open the door and make sure you get into your black car service. It was like, thank you so much for your service, and then we're going to tip you over the cliff.
Oh my God.
And that was what was happening in midlife, both from a societal standpoint, a provider standpoint. Like, I remember how I used to manage midlife medicine, and women would be in that phase and they were explaining things to me and it just wasn't clicking in my head. But I
Mhm.
also didn't we didn't have the tools back then. I didn't have this plethora of what we talk about now and what's in generation M of modalities and understanding of it. We were just like, I don't know. I don't know what to do.
Generation M, just to point out there, is
Yeah.
your book.
Yes. And so that to me was there's an issue. So now it's doctors are very good at here's a problem, I'm going to solve it. And I realized this gap in care and ability to connect with women and what they were going through and being able to put the pieces together for them. So that's the issue. And I was
Mhm.
like, but we don't have any solution. And this is where we just started the beginning research of menopause and what it truly means. And
What
I
year
just
was,
like,
what year
this was about
around?
2018,
Okay. Oh,
not so recent.
very recent.
Yeah. And
Wow.
we see much more data now, but prior to that, wasn't much popping up. And so
Wow.
I just really sunk into it. And then you started seeing the community grow, learn so much. And I started to talk to my patients differently, really creating this is what's really going on in women's lives. And now we have more data. Now we have more solutions and putting it all together. And that's when I was just like, there's so much more for women in this phase and
Mhm.
how they get to live their lives later. Then
Mhm.
I want to be right at the core of that and helping them through this journey.
Thank you, because we need more like you. I will say this, there's this, again, maybe it's just through social media, but not true. Also through friends of mine that were going through it
Mhm.
before. There was like this fear mongering almost. Like I've had people sit in front of me at dinner or whatever and be like, you just wait. You just wait until you're gonna gain that 10 pounds and you this and this. And I'm like, hang on a second. First of all, don't put your shit on me. Like, and also, can't how can we change the paradigm where it's not necessarily going to be this awful, horrible thing that
Thank
happens
you
to us.
so much for saying it the way you just said it. That is exactly why I wrote the book because I say this all the time, horror story where they're like, don't open the door, someone's gonna jump out at you. And what I would love for women to come into themselves emotionally, physically, with better tools and conversation, and also empathy for themselves as they're going through this,
Hmm.
is that it can be a comedic love letter. Like they're like, I have love for myself. I have the ability to navigate through this differently than the generations did before. That's how I would like to do it. And so
Mm.
help me on this journey then that will manifest. But what
Mhm.
if we change that? And that's really it's a love letter to all the women who are going through it and have been through it and those who will go through it at some point is to understanding that this is an ability to transition to something beautiful.
Amazing. Thank goodness. I told you I'm getting the book immediately. Everyone else, I just wanted to read this one line from your book description. In Generation M, she throws out the old playbook and provides you with an empowering approach to thriving through this change and beyond. That's how I want to envision
Yeah.
my
Like,
future.
wouldn't you want to do 40% of your life is lived in the postmenopausal phase? Like, once you hit or menopause, rather, 40% of your life on average is still left to be lived. Why would I want to do that shitty if I don't have to? So it has to be in the conversations we have, but
Mhm.
also the mind construct individually of what we will allow in
Yes.
and not allow to taint that journey. And then also doing the things. That's the change that we were talking
Yes.
about before, like the lifestyle change, behavioral change, emotional change. And that should be the journey, is focusing more on that than dreading it.
Can you share just a couple of your top tips, maybe from the book? Obviously, everyone
Yeah,
out there that's in their 40s and 50s should go out and get this book, maybe even 30s. What do you think?
I think so too, because for so long we waited till them to get to menopause before we
Right.
would be like, oh, yeah, by the way, you're going through menopause.
Right.
I know you feel horrible, but you're through menopause.
Is it fair to say the more fit you are as you enter, and fit like mentally, physically, spiritually, as you enter that age, the easier transition you'll have? So it's almost like you can train for it, like you're training for anything.
Which is why I always say it's never a sprint, it's a marathon. And I would never
Mhm.
tell you, hey, by the way, you're going to run 26 miles tomorrow without
Right.
giving you any tips, tools, hydration, what's the strategy. And
Yeah,
so
we
it's the
need a
same way our
strategy.
lives. Yeah.
That's empowering.
Yes. I know it's coming.
Yeah.
I know how to prepare for it. I know why it happens. I know so many modalities and how to get through these things once they start to occur. All right, let's go. Let's do it. That really diffuses and takes down the angst of it.
The angst, exactly. I know we're getting close to our time together, but would you be able to share just a few?
Yeah, I have 5 tips I would say that are really important to me as someone looks through the book, reads through the book, is a lot of what happens to us, and we've already discussed this, is the changes that we decide we're going to make for ourselves. And I'm sure if when you talk about badassery, that really has a lot to do with mindset, right?
Yes.
And so those changes that are going to serve you in the best way, I think, are fundamentally like nutrition. I
Mhm.
think that there are ways that our bodies process nutrients, which start to change in midlife. And so the biggest one that I would say is increase your protein for muscle mass.
Yep.
And that's a whole nuanced statement. So I hate just leaving it there, but
Yep.
at least putting that nugget there
I
and
can
also
just
increasing.
share,
Yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
that I have an episode where I talk about this. I think it's in my 6 habits. And everyone, I'll also drop a link in the show notes to my nutrition guide. So if you need
Yeah.
specific help with that, because I'm on board with nutrition 100% and increasing your protein, quality protein,
Yes.
etc. Go ahead.
And I think those are so important because that's in the long run, our body really has our what's in it to function and to be optimized. And if we don't allow it to have the best, you would never put shit gas in your car. And
Right.
somehow we don't equate that same thing to our bodies. And then we want our bodies to show up for us and function well in our 70s. And it's like, I'm piecing out.
Right.
This is a no-go. So protein, I would say fiber, vitamin D, if I were to take like top 3 things. The other thing that I would say is now fitness, exercise, movement. I try and put them in one category because people have different perceptions of what those are, but
Yep.
categorically they're the same thing,
Hmm.
is to increase your strength training. It does not mean that you have to forego and ignore and shun cardiovascular. It just means you need to shift the ratio a little bit more to putting importance on weight training because your muscle really is so important as you age. And so those are the first 2. Hormone replacement therapy. You and I were definitely going hard on HRT before we got on here. Hormone replacement therapy, I would say it is not a medication. It is a supplementation. It is something that's naturally already in your body, but will decline over time. And so I always say the tank is getting empty. You get to decide, do I want to fill it up? Even if it's quarter tank. And that's usually how we look at HRT, is just to give you that nice buffer where your body can function on the hormones we're
Hmm.
giving it versus biologically, it will have no more at some point.
Okay.
And so you get to decide how you want that to look for you because I never want to look, I'm a very big HRT advocate, but I would never want to say that someone's doing it. I want
Right.
you to do it because you understand it and you want to do it.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I just have to share that
Yeah.
I started last week.
This is big news. I feel like we need to follow up
Yeah.
and like a month or two and seeing
Yeah.
how you're doing with that.
Yes, for sure. I will follow up because I'll probably have questions. And I
Yes. Oh,
feel like we
yes,
can do a
absolutely.
whole other episode about
I
just
know. We
tea.
would just do a Q and A's. You like get all the
Yeah.
questions from your audience and then we can just hammer
Yes.
it out on HRT. I would love.
Yes.
And then the fourth thing I would say is this is really where I start to get like my woo of what we go through in this transition. And I think this is where a lot of women do not feel seen or heard. For decades, they have been saying, something's changing. I don't feel right. Something's off. And so many times they were dismissed. And so I always say that this opportunity that women have in this time in their life is to look inward and lean into the discomfort and uncertainty of what is going on in
Mm,
order to come out even better.
amazing.
And I think the more that we create community and allow ourselves to feel different, but also maybe to grieve what we
Mm,
felt like in our 20s and 30s and being like, that's okay. I'm moving on to another chapter, and this chapter can be just as great or even better.
even
And
better.
yes. And the last thing I would say is actually sleep. And I feel like I'm talking to myself as I bring this up because in the last maybe 2 years, I've really tried to focus on how important sleep is.
Yeah.
Still yet very hard for me to calm it down and actually stay supine. People are
Mhm.
like, do you lie down ever? And I'm like, there may be a moment that I do. So sleep is imperative. And I think that sleep gets disrupted during perimenopause, but also has to do with hormones, but also our mind. We ruminate.
Yeah.
And so if you took the time to figure out what are the things that are going to help me keep sleep quality, actually will impact your experience as well. So those are the five things I would say I love to focus on.
And it's so interesting because there's so much overlap in my group coaching, which is called Burnout to Badass: mindset, mindfulness, meditation, movement, nutrition, and sleep. Those are my 6 habits
This
of
is
high performance,
we just said the same thing.
except HRT. Yes. But isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
love that mirroring energy. We have it
yeah.
going. Yeah.
Absolutely. First of all, so that I think is a perfect time to wrap. But before we go, first want to just thank you so much for your wisdom, your story, sharing it all with us here. And I would love to have you back to dig in a little bit more into HRT and gather some questions from the audience like you suggested. But
Yeah.
before we go, I always have 4 rapid fire questions that I like
Let's
to
do
ask.
it.
Ready? What was your favorite food when you were a kid?
Oh, Jamaican food is
Yeah.
probably what I was brought up around and still one of my favorites today.
Sounds delish. Second, if you could have a drink with anyone, alive or dead, who would it be and what's your drink?
Definitely tequila based. That was easy. Now I'm like, who's the person?
Yeah.
I think the person is alive and I have a lot of questions for her. It would probably be Michelle Obama.
Oh,
Yeah.
love.
Besides that, is that
Yeah.
there's a lot of similarities as a woman
Mm,
going through this day and age who's had kids, who's had really high profile positions. I'm just like, how did you navigate through that? It doesn't necessarily mean that I have to do it that way, but I'd love to hear
yeah.
like the questions you can't ask in a recorded interview.
Yeah.
That's what I want to ask her.
With a margarita, Paloma, what are
Yes.
we talking? Margarita.
I'm very margarita based,
Okay,
and
good.
añejo is the tequila that I love. It has to be
Right.
añejo.
Great. And then third is your favorite book, self-help book, personal development, anything in that category.
Yeah, there is Young Pueblo. There is, he has two, but he's the author, I would say, is Clarity and Connection are those two books that I
I
think are
see a
great
lot of
for
his quotes
anybody.
online. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And the fourth, which is what's your favorite hype song, the song that gets you going?
This is where people really get to know who I am. There is a song, it was in college that it came out, but, and people are going to laugh if they hear it. It's called Throw Some D's. And I can't say the rest of the sentence, but that's the song that if someone turns that on, I'm like, let's go.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Jessica Shepard. Thank you for being on here. Share where everyone can get your book, just repeat the name and where everyone can connect with you.
Yes, Generation M, Living Well in Perimenopause and Menopause is available online on Barnes and Noble, but also in store and Amazon. And I really think that it can be the book that everyone can read, everyone can give away, and even to men. I think that it is written in a way that so many people can read it, that it doesn't feel like it's just for one audience.
Oh, I love that. Wonderful. And where are you?
On social media, I'm at Jessica Shepherd, MD, SHEPHERD, MD, and then also Modern Meno, MODERN, MENO.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again. And everyone out there, I would love to hear, where are you on the journey? And do you have any questions for a second encore episode? Make sure you reach out, let us know. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in. We'd love if you subscribed and leave a review, because I appreciate and love you so much. Thank you again, and see you next time.